Legislators heading back to Springfield today, meaning they're going through the process of spring session. It ends May 31st. Here we are. It's only March 11th, but obviously the budget's going to be a big deal with revenue projections kind of mixed depending on what agency you look at. But before we get to the budget, it seems to be an annual tradition every year of a ton of committee hearings, filing all kinds of legislation, and a lot of the political conversation focusing around various different types of issues outside of how your tax dollars are going to be spent. So Illinois in Focus Daily, here with you each and every weekday morning. Catch the live show by liking and subscribing and joining us at 8 o'clock each and every weekday morning with the Center Square here on YouTube. Or you can get the podcast where you get podcasts, but also check out the segments at the YouTube channel and get the newsletter at thecentersquare.com. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, he is actually not in Illinois. He's going to be at the South by Southwest Festival. He's got an 11:30 event joining Rivian and South Carolina's governor for a conversation of how EVs secure U.S. leadership and strengthen communities. So that's going to be happening. But then later on in the day, the governor is going to be joining the IBM chairman and a CEO to discuss sci-fi to science. And it's the new era of AI and quantum computing. And again, that's another panel discussion that the governor's got scheduled today in South by Southwest. So don't expect, the governor to be making, some news during off-topic questions, because really those are going to be the two focuses that the governor is going to be speaking about outside of Illinois today. Meanwhile, legislators heading back to Springfield. They're both chambers coming in at noon. And, we might not have much action at all. Maybe some second readings of bills as we get close to the deadline for the Senate to pass Senate bills out of the Senate and the House to pass House bills out of the House, but they've got committee deadlines before that as well. So there's going to be a flurry of activity in the weeks ahead. But as legislators are driving down to Springfield, some senators staying back in Chicago, at least for a 9 o'clock transportation committee hearing. And what they're going to be talking about is the idea of consolidating some of the state's mass transit districts. All right. And this is as you've got the possibility of a huge fiscal cliff for these transit agencies. $730 million is what's anticipated. So they have a measure that they're going to be talking about called the Metropolitan Mobility Act. Not long ago, you had agencies pushing back on that, but a poll showing that there's some favor in the public of putting this all together in one agency. If you go to thecentersquare.com, you can find this story from way back in October where this was talked about. And here's just some of that.
Metra and Pace all have separate apps that don't work well together or don't work together at all, forcing people to juggle multiple apps, multiple schedules, and separate fares that just don't work as well as they should.
We all want to do the best job we can. I do not believe that combining us into one organization will make us better.
So, obviously, we'll be watching that committee hearing to see what happens. Again, that's at 9 o'clock up in Chicago, but legislators heading back down for a whole host of things, including in the House. You've got an appropriations committee for elementary and secondary education. We've been hearing a lot out of this committee as part of the budget process. About a quarter of every tax dollar the state collects from you is going to go to education, K through 12 education. And then when you wrap in the federal dollars, it's billions and billions and billions of dollars going to education. But they're going to be talking about a variety of things like special education. The National Board Certified Teachers are going to be speaking. Also, the Southwest Organizing Project, all looking for tax dollars to fund operations. Then a little bit later on in the afternoon, you've got an Adoption and Child Welfare Committee that's going to be talking about the Family First model. So, we'll get an overview of that with a subject matter hearing. The Agricultural Committee is going to be looking at the impacts of of the United States Department of Agriculture funding freeze, as the subject matter notes, and tariffs and the delayed farm bill and how it impacts Illinois agriculture. So farmers may want to be paying close attention to that. It's at 2 o'clock. Then later on in the afternoon, you've got another Energy Policy 101 subject matter hearing with the Energy and Environment Committee. So that's some stuff that's going on today at the State House. Obviously, we'll also have some news conferences. I think Republicans are going to be discussing some of the priorities they see are misguided from Democrats in the supermajority. So minority party Republicans doing what they can to get some of their points out, but obviously they're in the minority party, so how effective are they really going to be? So that's just, again, a preview of what's coming up today. Governor's out of state. We've got a whole slew of committee hearings today touching on different subject matters. Are bills going to advance? Sure. As I had mentioned before in previous segments, and hopefully this is a way to educate viewers and listeners and readers on how the process works in Springfield. You've got bills that are filed, right? This is a new General Assembly. They started in January. They file thousands of bills. Those bills then go into certain committees, and certain committees are actually substantive committees that move them. But there's one committee, at least in the House, called the House Rules Committee. And it's always been kind of generally known that if a bill is in the House Rules Committee for any length of period of time, it's likely not going anywhere, right? So if it's stuck in the Rules Committee, the colloquial term is, the phrase is, that's where bills go to die. So you got to be cognizant of that, right? And when we talk about bills that are controversial, I do want to point out to one that a lot of people have raised with me, and I think we talked about this briefly earlier this week, but this is House Bill 3458, and what it does is it says it amends the criminal code and provides that if a defense to aggravated battery when individual battered is a peace officer and the officer responded to an incident in which the officer interacted with a person whom a reasonable officer could believe was having a mental health episode, and the person with whom the officer interacted has a documented mental illness and acted abruptly. So again, seeming to have this aggravated battery defense for people who are having a mental health episode. But as you see, obviously a lot of people have shared this with me. Law enforcement reached out and shared this with me, showing their opposition to it, and others. But you can see here it's stuck in the Rules Committee. So it's been there since, almost a month ago. Not sure this is going to advance. Doesn't mean it can't advance. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen here in the weeks ahead, but just to understand that that's a measure that has yet to advance. Another one that was raised to my attention here is House Bill 2764. This one a little bit more lengthy when it comes to the synopsis. Provides that notwithstanding anything in the contrary in specific provisions of law, a person serving a term of imprisonment, including terms of natural life in a Department of Corrections institution or facility, eligible for earned reentry, provides for the first year following the effective date of the Amendatory Act, a person is eligible for earned reentry if he or she has served a term of imprisonment of at least 35 consecutive years, provides that the second year following the effective date of the Amendatory Act, a person is eligible for earned reentry if he or she has served a term of imprisonment of at least 25 consecutive years. So it looks like it allows for people who may have long sentences to maybe have a pathway towards earned reentry. In this bill, as people are pointing out, in the law enforcement community, not happy about this. This could advance. It's in the Judiciary Criminal Committee. So again, not the House Rules Committee. It's in an actual substantive committee, the Judiciary Criminal Committee. Now, a lot of the public feels they can't interact with what's going on at the State House, but you can. And in no way is this a way to have people go as pros or cons for things. But if you go to my.ilga.gov, you will be able to see the upcoming committee hearings. You can find the bills that are there. And you can even go in and file witness slips. And you just click through, you find witness slips, and you can actually provide witness slips on all kinds of legislation. So that's just a way that the public can interact, at least from a distance, when it comes to certain bills that are being brought up. So that's just some of the legislation that could be discussed, that likely won't be discussed, or some of the topics that are going to be brought up during the session today in Springfield. And of course, as the Illinois Associate Editor, we'll be there on the ground to cover all of that and more. It is Illinois in Focus. That's what we do. We focus in on Illinois here each and every weekday morning. I'm Greg Bishop. Thank you so much for being part of the program. Wake up with us and hop into the chat room live. You can also get the podcast where you get podcasts. And don't forget that newsletter at thecentersquare.com.